Okay, so as a high achiever, this is something you need to get very good at is how to handle criticism and how to handle criticism in the right way. Most of us, yeah, almost all of us, we have been handling criticism for ages. In fact, since we were about so high, as babies and children, we've grown up understanding how to, or been trained in a certain way to handle criticism. And most of us still treat criticism in that exact same way. And what I want to show you is that way is wrong. How we were taught to handle criticism is so wrong for us. It's not how we should handle criticism. But we are subconsciously still doing it in the same way. And if you think about it, when you were a kid, okay, so a person of authority, so your parent or your teacher would say, listen, Keith, come in here. What you've done is not good. And how did you feel at the end of it? It was usually like, what do you have to say? I'm sorry. What was that? I'm sorry. And we were taught that a person in authority, when they talk to us and give us this, call it feedback, that we take that on board and somehow change our behaviors to match the behaviors that they're trying to push on us. And by and large, as a parent, what they're trying to do is our parents love them dearly, but what they're doing is they're pushing their values and their ways and their expectations of their lives onto their children. A teacher is pushing their values of how you should behave in their space and all of that onto you as a student. And similarly, in the work world, we have that same relationship with our managers and our peers and our bosses, that we have this thing it's now called feedback. It's not called criticism anymore, it's called feedback. We're too politically correct to call it criticism. But that is then pushed on us. So where's the problem with all of that? Well, when you were a kid, right, what your parent was telling you was what was appropriate for your parent. At some stage, you've got to say, hang on a second, I actually disagree with what you're saying. There are many different ways of thinking or doing or acting or behaving or right? Why is what you're telling me right? And as a kid, we're sort of, that's called answering back and back talk, and that's not good, okay? We're not allowed to do that. Same with a teacher. But as an adult, that is absolutely what we should be doing. Just because someone is in a position of authority and tells us something, that doesn't mean it's right or wrong for us. And we've got to realize that we're now adults now, and if we want to be an achiever, we've got to get used to listening people's feedback or people's opinions, by having our own process to go, I'll take that as an input, but actually I'm the one who's going to decide what it is that I want. And there are, just as there are billions of people around the world, there are billions of opportunities and billions of people who want to go and tell you how to run your life or how to do something, or you're right or you're wrong. Okay, but it's you're the one with responsibility. And that's the first thing I want you to understand about criticism and feedback is it's all about you. It's not about the other people, first of all, okay? So the second horrible thing that I want you to realize is that as you start achieving more, as you start doing more, you will attract more criticism. It's just the way humans work, and it's not that we're being nasty as humans. It's just the way we work. We spot differences. We spot, if it's a red dot on a huge white background, we'll go red dot, red dot. We won't even see the huge white background, and that's the way it works with achievers as well. If someone is doing here and everyone else is here, it's like, what are they doing? That can't be right. Everyone else is doing this. You need to come back down here. So that's the way we all work. And you only have to look at people like Barack Obama. He probably, when he was a child, he had very few people who criticized him, and as he progressed his career, more people criticized him. As he got to be president of the free world, as he calls himself, he now has critics everywhere. Yeah, but actually, as a person, he is still the same person. He's probably a hell of a lot better than he was back then. He's improving the whole time, and although he's more critics, he's also got way more people that now know him and think he's doing a lot better. If he was just sitting in Hawaii, there's probably maybe 500 people would have known him. Now the whole world knows him, so he has so many more critics. Right? And that's the same if you think of any sports star, any politician, any person famous, any businessman who's scaling up. They have way more critics because they're at a higher level. And if you're an achiever, you are going to be at a higher level. You will have more critics, okay? That's just the way it's going to be. So more importantly, that's why you need to understand that when you get more criticism, right, it's up to you to understand that that criticism is not directed for you, it's just part of human nature, but it's up to you to learn how to handle it, okay? So you got that? Now here's the other thing you've got to be very, very wary of, is that quite often criticism is disguised as feedback, particularly in the corporate world. And there's this brilliant thing that we're not all trained to do, but it works brilliantly. Once you understand the psychology behind what I'm about to tell you, you'll go, wow, okay? And it's like this. I'm your manager and you're there, and I say to you, do you mind if I give you some feedback? And you have to say yes, okay? You can't say, oh, no, I don't want any feedback. You feel obliged to say yes. And then I'll tell you what I want you to do, right? It's all in my interest, right? So I'll tell you that. And the psychology behind it is first of all, there's the seniority thing. So there's that playing in your brain. But what I do is I use this little trick called reciprocity, or yeah, you know it. I just can't pronounce it. But what I'm doing is I'm saying, I'm offering you something. Would you like? Yeah, I'm giving you something. Oh, yeah, of course I will. Okay, it's a little human trick. And then once you say yes, you've now given me permission to tell you anything I want. Hey, and that's used all over the place. You probably, maybe you've even been trained on how to do it, but it's a very subtle trick that's used to try and get my thoughts into yours through feedback, and feedback is quite often criticism. So once you're aware of that, yeah, I'm going to show you the 3 questions that's going to sort of start preventing you from accepting just these little requests and me trying to get into your brain and make you do something or think something that actually is maybe not appropriate for you. The third thing I want you to also think about is quite often that there is some feedback that's gold dust, absolute gold dust. And often it is feedback that's disguised as criticism. And it typically comes from people you admire, or someone just says, listen, that's just terrible. You should have done this, yeah, off the cuff. And sometimes we're tempted to just ignore that and go, oh, no. But we have to keep our ears open for every now and again when those bits of gold dust comes along. And actually, if you know Randy Pausch, he was actually, I'll put a link below this video. He was the guy, he was diagnosed with brain cancer, and he put together this last lecture. He's a lecturer in, I think it was Harvard. And he put together this lecture, and all of his family and his friends and his students and peers came to this lecture. And during this lecture, he told everyone, this is what I learned during my life, and here's how it all works. And one of the amazing stories he told a story about a colleague or I think it was an actual peer of his, who said to him one day, he said, oh, Randy, it's such a shame that people perceive you as being so arrogant, because that could really limit the way you get on in life. And as Randy said himself in the video, he said, I've never been called an arsehole in such a nice way before. And you could see his thankfulness for first of all, he had the courage to have his brain open to hear that message. And then he was able to actually go and do something with it. But those type of gold dust, you always need to be open for and keeping an eye out for. So there are the 3 concepts about criticism that I just want to get through to you. But now the most important thing is, what can you now do about it? Knowing now what you know about it, you're going to have more critics. You're going to have people trying to play brain games in you and get their messages into your brain. But at the same time, you need to be open and listening for those bits of gold dust. So the first thing to be really careful of, the 3 questions, is always ask, is this feedback solicited? Okay, so what do I mean by that? Did you actually ask for this? Okay, and why is that really important? Because 9 times out of 10, in fact, probably close to 99 times out of 100, when someone tries to offer you feedback, it's not in your interest, it's in their interest. They want you to change your behavior, they want you to change your thought process, they want you to change something else, okay? It's in their interest, okay? You have got to ask yourself, if you get this unsolicited feedback, you've got to ask yourself, hang on a second, what is the potential ulterior motive, their ulterior motive, and then decide, okay, I now understand where they're coming from, but where am I coming from, right? Where is my position? If I follow along with that, am I actually curtailing what I want out of life? Am I curtailing what I am doing? Is it someone just trying to pull me down to the level that everyone else is at? And that is, honestly, it's probably 95% of all unsolicited feedback is someone trying to do that to you. Always, always, always. So be very aware. If it's unsolicited, it's nearly always not in your interest. It is just someone trying to implant their view on you. So be very careful of that. The second thing, really important again, is qualified. Right? This is the one that almost everyone overlooks, okay? So the person who's giving me this feedback or criticism, okay, are they actually qualified to give me that? So you wouldn't start building a nuclear power station and then go off to a brain surgeon to ask how to put in the fuel rods, okay? It's madness, right? If the brain surgeon said, listen, I've got a great idea. No, I'll go to the nuclear engineer for that. But in our own lives, we do this all the time. Most of the feedback that we sit there and listen to is from unqualified people. And if you want a really great example of qualified versus unqualified, so a recent survey about managers, so managers is where you, me, and everyone else gets probably most of our advice about career and progression and how to get it. Well, actually, only 20% of managers are in any way effective at guiding people through career guidance and motivating people and getting them into developing themselves as a human being and a person who can go forward. That is just 20%, right? So maybe you have one of the 20% managers, but the chances are is you typically have one of those 80% managers who, you know, they're learning from their peers, they're copying what they've learned, they're copying what the boss has done, but actually they're not that great at developing you personally, as a human being, and getting your potential out there so you can actually progress the way you know you can. So if you are relying on your manager to give you all of this advice and for your career, you're probably already relying on unqualified opinion. So you need to check, whoever's giving you this feedback, you need to make sure that they are qualified to do it, that they have the experience, they've been there, they've done it. There's nothing like secondhand feedback. The amount of times I've been told such and such problem, oh, it's terrible, oh, you need to go and change this. And you say, well, you start questioning, oh, how comes I was told by? Come on, who were you told by? Let's get them in, you get them in. So what happened? The story is completely different. Hang on, so that's the person who experienced it, and you're the person who listened to their story and you're telling me there's a different problem. And that happens every single day, all the time, is people acting on second-hand information. So make sure it's first-hand information, the person's qualified. And the last thing, the A, is actionable, okay? And this is really important. You've only got one life, right? So why would you sit there listening to feedback or whatever it is if it's just going to go on and on and on, and at the end of it, you're just going to be sitting there going, so what can I do? And the answer is, well, nothing, right? So you got to make sure that whatever feedback you're going to go through or get or criticism, that at the end of this criticism, there's something you can do about it. If it's just someone's having a rant at you, no, why? That's just having a rant. It's who cares? Just forget about it. There's nothing you can do. So when you're looking at criticism, make sure, right, it's solicited. Now, you should have asked for it. If you've actually asked and someone says, listen, you're not doing this, this, and this right. Thanks, hopefully you've asked someone qualified, and hopefully they've given you actionable content. But if someone just unsolicited tells you something, 95%, again, straight in the bin. Just forget about it. And again, just keep your ears open for every now and again that little nugget, little bit of gold dust, which is actually someone telling you something that you're just blind to, and that is invaluable.